This is the second solution video to the challenge I called Mega Challenge Casino. All right, and so we're breaking things up into small chunks. And so now that we've already got the images displaying the real values displaying on our web page, we want to move past that. And the next thing that we want to do is determine the value of the pool. And so the value of the pool is going to either cancel out everything if there's even one bar present. If there are 3 sevens, then we'll have a multiplier of 100. So we'll take whatever the bet was and we'll multiply that by 100. And then the third thing that we'll need to do is check for the number of cherries. If it's 1 cherry, 2 cherries, 3 cherries, we'll get a different multiplier. So what we're really doing here is looking for a multiplier. Even the bar gives us a multiplier of 0, so that when you multiply the bet times the bar, say you put $5 down, but you multiply it by 0, you essentially lost your bet. All right, so what we want to do is now take the value of the bet, and we'll probably just put this in the pull lever. The pull lever should be managing, I think, most of the events inside of this application. And I think what we want to do is return the amount of winnings from pull lever, and then this pull button underscore click will be responsible for printing things to screen, saving the values of the customer's current money situation in view state and things of that nature. Okay, so we'll ultimately be returning an int from here, and that will be the total winnings. So we got to take the bet. So that means we need to accept into pull money the amount that's being bet. So int bet. Right, and that means I'm going to have to pass it in. So I'm going to have to call. I'm just going to have to get int bet equals bet text box. Did I not name that? Darn it. Let's name that. So there we go. All right, we're back into this. All right, so bet text box dot text, and I guess what we could do is do the try parse thing. That makes the most sense. So we'll just declare the bet variable equals 0, and then we'll receive out the integer value in an output parameter. But if they type in Bob or type in nothing, then it should just exit out of the pull button click button press. All right, so here we go. We'll check it. So if not int dot parse, or try parse rather, then the bet text box and an out of the bet, then return, like so. Does that work? All right, I think it will. And then we're going to pass in the bet to pull lever. All right, so pull lever should have everything it needs now, even though we haven't returned a value yet. So probably what we need to do here is declare a value called the multiplier. So int multiplier. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get at, either 0 or 100 or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, so let's set that equal to. Now, how are we going to figure that out? Well, that sounds like a lot of if statements. So I might delegate this to another method that knows how to break apart the 3 real values and then determine whether it should be 0, 100, or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, so we're going to call that the evaluate spin method. All right, I don't have that method yet. So what I'm going to do, there's a couple of different ways I can go about this to create a method stub quickly and easily. I can just right click on it and select generate method stub like that. I'll show you a different technique here in just a moment. So now we have this evaluate spin helper method. It's going to return back an integer, so that'll be 0, 100, or 2 or 3 or 4. All right, so now here we need to decide how we're going to evaluate. We got to pass in the reals, right? Because that's a pretty important piece of it. We can't evaluate the spin if we don't know what the reals are. So string reals. Great. All right, so if there's even one bar, then return return 0. If there's 3 sevens, then return 100. And if there's a cherry, or I should say one or more cherries, return 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, like that. So how am I going to do this? Well, that looks like a lot of code, and we only have 6 lines to work with, so I'm going to have to delegate each of these little checks out into their own little helper method. So what I'll do is this to start off with. Let me think about this. I could use an out parameter. That would probably be the easiest, because basically I want to just exit out of the method, or actually I just want to return the value. Let me think about this for a second. What should I do here? Yeah, I think I'm going to do an out method sort of thing here, an out parameter rather. So I'll do something like this. If there is a bar, and I'll pass in the reals, then I want to return out of this a 0. Similarly, I'll do a similar style, like if is jackpot, and I'll pass in the reals, then I'm going to return 100. Okay, this is shaping up nicely. All right, and then I'm going to need a different kind of method here. I need to figure out if this is a winner or not. So if there's 1 cherry, 2 cherries, 3 cherries, any of those scenarios, it'll be a winner. But also I want to get back the multiplier. So here we didn't use out parameters, right? We just said it's false or it's true, but now we have to evaluate that there's 3 different possibilities, so we need to retrieve back which of those 3 or 4 possibilities, 0 or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to try and get the multiplier. So int multiplier, and we'll set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to do something like this. If is winner, and I'll pass in the reals, and then I'll do an out of the multiplier, right? Because that's ultimately what I want to get to. I want to get to 0 or 2 or 3 or 4. And what I'll return back to the caller of evaluate spin is whatever this multiplier is. So return multiplier. It's crazy. And if none of these scenarios are true, then we'll just return back 0, which means that they didn't have a bar, they didn't have 3 sevens, and they didn't have a cherry, but so the player still lost his bet. All right. Now that you can see that this is a common way of kind of laying out what you ultimately want your code to look like, how I ultimately want to make the call into these 3 methods. And it helps me look at this code and say, well, it's a consistent way to call and determine if there's a bar, if there's a jackpot, if there's a winner. And then so I write the methods first, and then I go off and implement them. So I said that there would be a different technique. I could just, remember before, right-click, select Generate Method Stub, or I could just type the whole thing in, which I'm trying to avoid here because I want to improve how fast I'm developing this application. You can see that there's a little a blue dash under the I in the is bar. If I were to hover my mouse cursor over this and then use the little drop down arrow to select options, this particular little submenu has only one option, which is just to generate the method stub. Sometimes you'll see the little blue dash appear, and you might have multiple options, and you can use the arrows or your mouse cursor to select one of those options. So again, whenever you see a little blue line underneath the first character, it's like a blue dash with no fill in it, then that means that there are options here. So I'm just going to select that and click this, and you can see it generated the isBar method, which is awesome. Okay, and so the check here in the isBar is going to be really simple. I just need to make sure that reals 0, reals 1, and reals 2 don't have a bar. Or put another way, if reals 0 equals 0, or reals 1 equals 0, or reals 2 equals 0, then, whoops, then it's true. This is a bar, so I'm going to return true, like so. Otherwise, else, I'll return false. Okay. Now, what is the problem here? Why am I checking 0? I'm a little confused. I'm checking for the word bar. Bar. Okay, there you go. That's what I was trying to do. I confused myself. All right, and so we can make this a little more compact and fit within our 6-line of code guideline, like so. All right, so if it is, if any of the reals have the value of bar, then that would mean this particular role does have a bar, and so it'll return true. And if it returns true, then we're going to hit this return 0 out of evaluate spin, and then that'll become the multiplier for whatever the bet was. All right, cool. So let's do the same thing with jackpot. Now, I showed you one way to do this, which is to use the little arrow, and then select with your mouse cursor. But you can also, when you see one of those pop up, you can hit the control key on your keyboard, CTRL button on your keyboard, and then hit the period on your keyboard. And that's a little shortcut. And it pops open the window. Again, this only has one option, but if there were multiple options, I could use my arrow keys and then select with the enter key on the keyboard. Now, in this particular case, it's already selected. There's only one option here, so I can just hit the enter key on my keyboard, and now it creates the stub for that is jackpot method. Great. And so we'll just do pretty much the antithesis of what we did here in the is bar. So if reals 0 is equal to 7, and if reals sub 1 equals 7, and if reals 2 equals 7, well, then we just found ourselves a jackpot. So we'll return true, else return false. All right, and so if it's true, then if it is a jackpot, then we're going to return 100 as the multiplier that's passed out of evaluate spin and then used in the pull lever method. Great. Finally, we have to do the is winner. Now, this is going to be a little bit different because we're not just testing one condition, we're testing multiple conditions. Let me move some things around here so you can see all this code. All right, so let's go back up here now, and I'll just use that control period on my keyboard and hit enter to create the is winner method stub. Awesome. And so this time what I want to do is I'm going to have to count the cherries, right? So we're going to get int cherry count equals 0. And what I want to do is basically increase cherry count by 1 if reals 0 equals cherry, then I want to take cherry count plus plus. If reals 1 equals cherry, then cherry count plus plus. And then if reals 1 equals cherry, then cherry count plus plus. All right. So now what we'll do is just evaluate the number of cherry counts. So if cherry count is equal to 1, then we'll return 2. So you'll double your money. That'll be the multiplier that we're going to pass out of. Whoops, I guess we can't do it quite that way, right? We got to do then multiplier. Well, we're going to have to do multiple lines of code here, I think. Maybe not. Multiplier equals 2. Let's just keep going with this and see. If cherry count equals 2, then the multiplier will equal 3. And if the cherry count is equal to 3, then we'll set the multiplier equal to 4. And then, well, I guess we can start off with 0, right? Well, yeah, I guess I can. If cherry count is equal to 0, then I'll set the multiplier equal to 0. And then I'll just, well, Well, that's not going to work, right? We only need to send is winner back if, so what I'm seeing here is that I'm going to require more than 6 lines of code, which tells me I'm trying to do too much in this method. Because now I got to figure out, if multiplier is greater than 0, then I want to return back true, it is a winner. Otherwise, I want to return false. Now I'm up to like 10 or 12 lines of code. So what I'll do is I'm going to take this cherry counting bit and I'm going to move that into its own method. So private int determine cherry count, like so. And I'll just go ahead and do that. I need the reals, right? So string reals. And now I'm going to call, I'll do int cherry count equals determine cherry count, and I'll pass in reals. You can see I just keep passing that reals thing around because we keep evaluating it and going deeper into this. All right, so I think I don't need this anymore. Actually what I should do is to make this really nice and compact, I'm going to pull this part out too, and I'm going to put that in a little helper method called private int determine multiplier. And here again, I'm going to pass in reals. No, do I need reals here? Let's think about this a minute. Cherry count. All I need is the cherry count. I'm pretty sure about this. So I really have a dilemma here. I guess I really don't need cherry count up at this level. I could put it down here, like this, and just do return 0. So is winner will call determine the multiplier. Right? All right, so I will say, oh yeah, we're going to pass multiplier out. That's great. This will actually work. All right, multiplier equals determine multiplier, and I'll have to pass in the reals. Good. So now I have the multiplier. If the there you go. If the multiplier is greater than 0, then I'm going to return true, right? Because this is a winner. Else, I'm just going to return false. I don't even have to put an else. I can just do this, return false, like that. Because this will be a gate if I use the return right there. All right, so now I got to accept reals here. So a string reals, and then he calls out to determine cherry count. Now, what do I need to do here? I need to just return instead of set. So return 2, return 3, and return 4. And then if that makes it that far, then I'll just return 0, right? It's not 2, 3, or 4, so I'll just have to be 0. Okay. This determine cherry count's not very happy. What is the problem here? Not all code paths return a value, right? We never really return anything. So let's return the cherry count. I think that'll satisfy that, right? Yes. So now we've determined the cherry count. We get that. That's our cherry count. We're going to evaluate cherry count, and then we'll pass that back out, and if that becomes the multiplier. And if it's greater than 0, then it is true. It is a winner. Otherwise, it'll be false. So now we go back up to evaluate spin, which is where all this started. And let's compact this down a little bit because it looks kind of like more than 6 lines of code. And yeah, it's only 5 lines now. All right? I feel good about that. Were you able to figure that part out? Or use a lot of like smaller methods in order to do that? Hopefully you were. But if not, hopefully that helps you out. Okay, so I think that gives us back now. We called this, we called this, we called this, we called this. Okay, so we're back to pull lever. And we still haven't really passed back the amount of winnings, which is ultimately what we want here, right? We want to determine what the winnings are. So let's do that. Winnings equals pull lever back. Okay, so then we get the multiplier, and then we should just be able to say return the bet times the multiplier. Are you serious? Is that going to be it? Are we going to be able to do that like that? Awesome. I think this is going to work. Okay, now we got to display it somehow. Let's just, well, let's go ahead and do it right, I guess. So, who should be responsible for displaying the results? Well, I guess this pull button, since he's kind of coordinating everything. Okay, so we got the winnings now. We should be able to display the bet and the winnings. So display the result. Whoops, display result. And I think I'm going to need to give it the original bet and winnings, if any. And I should be able to use that to figure out what I should display. So I'll hit Control period and then enter on my keyboard. And I'm just going to do an if. So if the winnings are greater than 0, then we're going to give it one message. Else we'll give it a different message. And I'll go ahead and do it here. So result label dot text equals. All right, let's think about this for a minute. Let's do a string.format. Format. And then I think, according to the requirements here, somewhere in this document, here's the loser. Oh, no, here's the winner condition. This is what we want. Take a look at the text. You bet $8 and won 24. Okay, that's easy enough. So let's do this. All right, so you bet 0 and won 1. All right. And so we'll give it, you bet the bet and you won the winnings. There you go. And this is currency, so let's go ahead and put the :C there and the :C there. Great. And we don't need that because I think that's the only line of code we really need. All right. And then result label.text equals, and now let's look at the winning situation or the losing situation. What does it say there? Sorry you lost your bet amount. Better luck next time. Sorry you lost your bet amount. So string dot format. Sorry you lost your bet. Better luck next time. All right, now I forgot exactly the format here. My short-term memory is completely shot. All right, you lost $8. All right, so I put your bet there. So 0, and I know it's going to be currency, so I'll go ahead and just do that. And then it's the bet that we want to display here. All right, so I think that'll display the result now. Am I calling it? Yes, I am. Okay, this should work. We did a lot of work in here and didn't really test anything. It always makes me a little nervous. Ideally, you'd code for about a minute or two and then test things, but I'm trying to run through this. All right, let's do $5. Pull the lever. Sorry, you lost $5. There's a bar. That makes sense. Okay, let's hit it again. All right, you lost $5 only because there's no matching cherries or 7s or anything like that. All right, you lost another $5. There's a bar, so you lost. I'm trying to find a cherry condition. Okay, good. All right, so one cherry, you bet 5 and you won 10. That does follow along with the double your bet. And I guess we just need to keep clicking until we got 2 cherries in one roll, in one spin. I guess we could kind of use the debugging features of Visual Studio to force that condition where, I would put like maybe here in the evaluate spin. Well, actually, what I could do is right here in the determine cherry count, this would be kind of sneaky, set a breakpoint, and then when we get to that breakpoint, change the value of each of the real sub 0, real sub 1, real sub, whoa, look at this, I caught a bug. Ooh, that would have been horrible. That would have been horrible, but I caught it, thank goodness. All right, so, but I could, use the Visual Studio debugging tools while the application is running, change the value of each of the string array values, elements, and then test to see that if 1 came up, 2 comes up, 3 comes up, does it give us the right result? But I'm not going to do that. I'll let you do that on your own, okay? And I think we've pretty much we've finished the second portion of the solution. But there's one more to go where we have to worry about the winnings and how much the player currently has. Like, looks like the player has won some, lost some, and now he's only got 92. And we said we we're going to do that with view state. So we're going to do that in the next lesson. All right. Thank you.